Hi, I'm Laurie.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
So I had something happen this week that was really interesting. I wouldn't say it triggered me, but sometimes when we think we're past all of the abuse, we've done the work and we're moving on, and then things come back up. So in my family, when I told my story, my aunts disowned me and their kids. And so for the last 30 years, I haven't seen them. One of the aunts has passed away, and her daughter and brother are my cousins. And then the other aunt never had kids. So so I get a message on my webpage and saying, hey, I've been trying to reach you. Just want you to know your cousin passed away. And he would be a little younger than me.
Really?
And had some complications and they weren't able to revive him. And she said, as you can imagine, his sister's devastated. And if you'd like to know details, email me. And so immediately I called my siblings and we had a chat, and I emailed and said, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sure that it's really awful for you, because she was like his other mother. Please feel free to let me know any details, meaning service or whatever. And then when she emailed back, she said, I've thought about you a lot and I've looked online to see what you're up to. And it's this terrible sadness because I grew up with my cousins. We spent our whole childhood together, and then they chose to not believe or to side with the abuser, which happens a lot. And I don't intend to go to the service. I don't intend to open that door because they're still in contact with my abusers. So it was just interesting because I want to be kind and I want to be loving, and I recognize that I've forgiven. I wasn't like, but also I was like, I'm not opening that door for relationship. It was just really interesting. And then I wasn't going to share about it, but I thought, this probably happens to people.
Yeah.
That they then have to be in a room with or go to a service for somebody that hasn't believed them or has sided with the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And like I say, what didn't feel like a trigger, it felt like, sadness. I'm so sad.
You're sad about your cousin passing?
Yeah.
Or you're sad about not being in touch with them for that whole time?
Well, I've been sad about that for years because, lots of families have lots of cousins. We had two.
Yeah.
And now we have none. The sadness was truly for losing him, but then just almost like, hey, how you doing? Like nothing, like it had been no time, and family dynamics are just so hard. And I kind of wanted to just stuff it down and not talk about it. But then I thought, I think it is important to talk about because I think that there are just so many elements of this. And I thought about, we've talked so much about forgiveness, and it doesn't feel like it's not forgiveness. Like, I feel like I came to a place where I could forgive them. For whatever reason, they made their decision. What it brought back was sort of that, when you're the little kid that's abused and you feel like a yucky person because yucky things are happening. That's what it felt like.
Really?
I felt like, I'm the yucky little girl.
So it brought you back to where you felt when you were being abused.
Yeah. And not believed, and what kind of a person would make up a story like that, and all the accusations that go with that, and you're destroying our family. And so many things that go along with that. And the reason that we kind of drew the line is there were a lot of kids involved and these people couldn't be around the kids.
Yeah.
And so one of the cousins said, I promise you I'll never let them be alone with my kids. But when you let your kids be around a perpetrator, even if you don't let them be alone with them, if that perpetrator rolls up to them in a car when they're on the street and they've been safe, they've been at every party, every family get together, that kid's not going to think this isn't safe. That kid's going to get in the car with them. So that's what it stirred up a lot of.
That's got to be hard because, you know, there's so many unresolved issues that because of them contacting you. And I know when I had to set up boundaries, at least they all acknowledged why I was doing that. With you, you were setting up boundaries, but they weren't acknowledging what happened. And so you weren't, it just, because of that, there's the betrayal of just not trusting you, not believing you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when the one aunt passed away, when I knew that she was gone, my instant thought was, now she knows. You know, in my heart, it's like, now she knows the truth. And yeah, it really is, when you think about how this destroys families. First of all, the perpetrator is destroying the family by doing what they do. And then when the victim stands up and they make their choice, it can destroy the family either way, right? If either way it goes. And then also, there's also that element that you and I have talked about this before, when people think, oh, it happened to us, but it wouldn't happen to any other kids, so you don't say anything. But I stood up because I wanted those kids to be safe. And so I basically gave up my family for the safety of these kids. And they'll never know it. You know, I didn't do it for any kind of praise or anything, but that's why I did it, because I did believe that perpetrators re-abuse. I do believe that it's rarely just one. And so it just, in thinking about the podcast and the different things that we've covered, it just really made me aware again of telling your story is really hard. And I think it was, you were saying something about the ramifications. When you do, things happen.
We're given a burden that we don't deserve because it was done to us. But in your case, you were trying to protect the children because you don't want to give that perpetrator any more opportunities. But in protecting those children, you were given the burden of saying this isn't safe. And they didn't believe you.
So I don't get my family.
So you lost out on being connected to your family for so long. And now they connect with you, but it's like it's too late. It's over. It's done. And what can you do now? They're gone.
Well, they're actually not gone. The perpetrators aren't.
No, but I mean, you're the family that you could have been connected to, but decided to disown you.
Exactly.
You can't regain that because they chose to believe the perps. And you were trying to protect their kids, and they chose against you. And so we're given this burden.
And think about this. So they chose the perpetrator. So maybe their kids were abused. Maybe not. Maybe they never let them be alone. But then there's grandkids that are removed. There's going to be great grandkids or great nieces and nephews. They're not safe either.
Yeah.
But the parents chose not to say anything or do anything. And so you see how in protecting the perpetrator, how it allows them to just abuse generation after generation.
Yeah. It keeps that window open.
Yes.
And because of that, the generation after, when you talked about it, they don't know the story. They haven't heard it. They can't judge for themselves. So they're going in innocent, which is the perfect opportunity for the perpetrator to take advantage of. And you can't do anything to change that right now, although you're kind of given the opportunity by them opening this window.
Except that I don't know any of the kids.
Yeah.
Right? Because I drew the line when the kids were very, very little. So I don't know any of the kids. So I can't go to the kids of these people and say, hey, by the way, this is still a danger zone.
Yeah.
When I don't even know them. because they chose to alienate themselves from us. So it just shows how it just makes me sad that kids can be vulnerable that don't even know it because of some elderly person in their family that families chose to protect.
So what would happen now if you could contact them?
Well, I don't even know their names.
No.
Do I want to put that effort and call up people I don't even know and say, hey, by the way, you don't know me, but I mean, for years, I called every place where they went because they would do Christian service at different campgrounds. So I'd have to call every campground and say, hey, 7 years is up, so nothing ever happened, the statute of limitations. But just so you know, you have some predators in your kids' campground for kids. And then, so look at the burden that puts on me now. Do I have to be a private investigator and go find the people and see if they have kids and if the kids are still around the people? And because people didn't do their due diligence, they've opened the door for generations to be abused. And the person who tried to do the protecting now has to carry this burden. Is it my job to go and find them and make them hate me too and call me a liar?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult because you have been told you're a liar. So it's like, why would you make the effort? They don't believe you anyway.
Yeah. So, and there's no proof. I can't say, here's a police report. In the case of this person, there were other neighbor kids that had come forward throughout the years, but whether they filed police reports or not, I don't know. So it's just really a sad thing. And I don't need to be believed. I've worked on my story. I know what I know, and I've created my life and my own new family. But it just really, it's just something I hadn't even thought about.
That's the painful part, is you were able to just not think about it. It wasn't in your mind. Unfortunately, it's still there. And that's the hard part. It's still there.
Yeah.
And there isn't much you can do about it.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating with so much abuse, is the perpetrators never get justice. And often they're able to just continue in many cases because no one comes forward. No one is believed. No one gets to file a report because they don't come forward until it's too late.
Right. And when you think about it, often, not always, but often perpetrators are charming or, whatever the different things. And so how many times have we've heard that they've done something and people go, oh, they were the nicest neighbor. Oh, it's like they don't want to believe it because, they seem like such a nice, caring person, a youth pastor, a pastor, whatever. And so when you think of it in that light of that, people will be like, oh, they're just so nice.
Yeah, there's always a reason why the people side with the perps. And it's usually because they're charmed by them or they're more infatuated with them or whatever. And in order to be a perp, in many ways, you kind of have to be that way. That's how you work your way into it. That's how you manipulate yourself into that situation where you can be a perpetrator, is by not appearing like a perpetrator. I mean,
all around nice guy or gal.
You really have to have a persona of being safe and trustworthy and, respectable, because otherwise no one would want their kids around you. So you have to have the appearance of being trustworthy. So the people who when someone does come out, the people are all incredulous, going, no, that can't be possible. And that's how they keep doing it. That's how it continues.
Yeah. So I just thought, as much as, there's so many things about this that we don't want to share. Right. And when we tell people, tell your story, it's like, it is hard. And even, I really thought a long time about, I don't want any of the family to hear this. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But it just made me think about that. If this is true for me, right? Whatever's true for us, then is true for others. And if we're saying share your story so that you can help others, then I think there's aspects of our story that we want to share because maybe somebody else is walking through that and they don't know what to do or what to say. Had it been a phone call, it would have been really weird. It was an email. But that was still weird. And so, to be quite honest with you, I got it when I got to work, and I work in radio, so I've got things to do. I have to talk. And I found myself just zoned out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, how much time has passed? I wasn't like scrolling Facebook. I was just zoned out.
Yeah. It is hard to reconcile with those times when I've been looking at some of the things that have happened for me that, during this podcast that I didn't expect. And oftentimes it comes from hearing others' stories. And the thing is, we have to keep reconnecting with ourselves, it seems like. You have to, and sometimes that happens when we're triggered, and then there's a part of us that we haven't been paying attention to for a long time. And then you realize, oh, that's still hanging around. I still get upset about that. That still freaks me out. And you have to reconnect to that part of your past where that comes from, why you're being freaked out about this. And then it's this constant striving towards wholeness. But I know for me, there's so much of my past doesn't feel connected because I was able to block it out or push it down or submerge it for so long. And so when it comes up, it's like, oh man, I forgot all about that. Now I got to remember. And what happens is we're slowly regaining our history from the point of view of when we were going through it rather than from our point of view now, it seems like.
Yeah, in fact, well, what I recognized after I, zoned out a little bit is I recognized that often when these things happen, we have to make a decision again. One of the family members said, well, are you going to go to the service? And of course not. The perpetrator one of them will most likely be there.
Ugh.
So no. So I made a decision. And in a way it was like, oh, it was nice to hear from them. And then, oh, wait a minute. Those are the people that didn't believe me. And then, oh, wait a minute. And then that decision that I've done good work and good counseling, and I'm not going to let this set me back. And I'm not going to stew in behavior. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to say, well, I know what I know, what I know. And it's really unfortunate, but that door is not going to be opened. And I'm going to continue on my life. And maybe if the perpetrators were gone altogether, that might be a whole different thing, but they're still choosing them. So when I look at it as an opportunity, when I got past the, wow, that was weirdness of it, then it was like, I chose me and I chose to be safe and to be healthy and to believe me. And I felt like that was really, really good.
Yeah. So it's about acknowledging what you've lost because of what you had to bring up. So it's like you're just being reminded of what's gone.
Yeah. Like, okay, wow, I really missed out on this, but it's become the way life is after 30 years when you don't have family. And then there's part of me that's like, how is this me? How is this my life? But also just the recognition that I did share, that I did stand up for myself way back then. And I lost big time, but also they lost too. They lost me.
Yeah. And everything, your family, all of that. And in a huge way, you've gained from not having to be a part of that. And that's where you've stepped away from, is what their toxicity is. You've been able to get away from that, and it's not a part of what you have to deal with anymore. So that's where you can look back and say, I don't have to be affected by them now.
Yeah. And I'm not going to put myself in a position to ever have to defend myself because I know what I know what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, in a way, it seems like if you go back, you're going to have to just fight that fight again. And it's not worth it, because what are you going to gain? It's not like you're going to gain their relationship. That's all past.
Yeah. And I think the word you used was really good, because when people choose abusers, they stay in a toxic relationship, then they are toxic. So yeah, I felt like I wanted to share it, but I also feel like I said, I felt sad and I did check out a little bit, but then also I just recognized, the opportunity was that I could take a look at how strong I've been and the choices I've made, and I have done well.
Yeah. You're not stuck in that situation anymore. You were able to get free of them.
Right. And that's because I did the work. And I think that that's why I harp on this so much is that, we come out with our story, but then we do the work, because if you don't do the work, then you might not know where you stand. You might question yourself. But when you've done the work and you've validated who you are and all that you've gone through, it really, in a way, it's a no-brainer. I said I made a decision, but, even though I said, I'd like to know the details because I wanted to know what happened, doesn't mean I'm going to go running to the service.
That's where doing the work is so important, is you recognize what you've been through and what it took to get to where you are. And so you know that you're in a spot where you're making the decisions that are correct for you. Mm-hmm. And we don't get there without addressing. And we do say, tell your story, but we never say there's no consequences.
Yeah, right.
We talk a lot about that there often are consequences. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're positive. A lot of times they're positive. They're not always positive, and it also depends on who you tell your story to. Mm-hmm. That's the choice you make, but it's also, you have to choose to remain true to your story. And it starts by telling your story. And sometimes things surface that we're not even aware of when we first recognize that we're survivors. Things start surfacing afterwards, and we have to recognize them again. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important to basically, you have to continue to do the process of working on your issues and recognizing where they come from, looking at where they're coming from.
And having support, whether it's a support group, a counselor, a coach, somebody you can go to when these things come up. And for me, it's been so many years that, there hasn't really been anything new coming up. So this has been kind of like, oh. Yeah. So, but it made me really proud that I'm in a really great place. And it's like the things that happen to me don't name me. They're not how I identify. They were just something that happened. And, I heard this really great thing. I don't know, you can take this out if you want, but I heard this really great thing. So many people say, and Christians say, it was meant to be, or everything happens for a reason. And I know that they're saying that because they're so naive. They've never had anything bad happen to them, and they're just really naive. I'm just going to say that because I don't want to think people are evil. But when you say that, when people say that, and you think 1 out of 6 of us or 1 out of 5 of us have been abused, this is what happens to me. Someone in the pulpit, someone in a big meeting says, everything happens for a reason. And I say, oh, children are getting abused for a reason. Sexual abuse is happening to kids for a reason. Like this was God's big plan.
Yeah.
See, that's what, and so that's what has been so hard for me, because I want to shake them and say, stop saying that. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says he will work everything together for good to those who love him. And so what I heard this person say, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, what happens to us isn't part of the divine plan. It's not like that was never meant to be, but God knew it was going to happen because he's omnipresent. And so he's already created what we needed for next. He's already created the counselors, the support group, the people that are going to help us get through it, or people that are willing to tell their story so they can help somebody else.
Yeah.
And so that gave me so much hope, because sometimes I just get really weary of language.
Yeah. And that is why there is hope, is because our stories bring hope to others. Those of us who have been through it and gained a foothold and started to thrive and gotten to be who we really were created to be. We found our purpose. We're working on our purpose. We give purpose to those who are still learning their stories. So if we can inspire others with our stories, and even when we have these times of, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd be dealing with this again. And talking about that inspires others, because that happens to all of us. And that's why our stories matter. It's important for us to connect in that way. We do connect from the top to the bottom. We're all in this together. We've all been through so much. And when we can look at those who are thriving and have hope and healing in their lives, then it gives us inspiration to have hope and healing in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to say yes. And it's hard, like just, I mean, seems silly to me because we podcast all the time and that I had to really think, do I want to go and talk about this? Because I also, as you know, sometimes there are family members that I share my story, but I try to be pretty vague because I have other people in my family that would be affected by my sharing it because they're not ready yet. They haven't got there yet. Yeah. And so, trying to be careful, but also just the thing is that, like we talked about trust last time, it's like things that come up that catch us a little off guard. And then when we can share them, if it happens to someone else, they're like, hey, wait a minute. I know this happens and this isn't going to ruin me. This isn't going to spiral me down into the depths. I know that it might be hard and sad, but it doesn't change who I am and the path that I've chosen.
Yeah. By sharing our stories, we're showing trust in others, trust that they're going to take our stories at face value and believe us and acknowledge us. Mm-hmm. So, and that's another important reason to talk about our stories, is to honor that trust, honor that, people we're going to give them the opportunity to believe us. And it's so important because if you've never been there, you'll never understand it. But if you have been there, you're going to find kinship with someone else.
Right. That we're not alone.
Yeah. And that's what's so important, is we aren't alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a percentage of us.
I wish that someday people won't be having to address this.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be. And I know.
I believe the more that we share our story, and like we have seen the connections that we've made, like with that lawyer group, and the help they're doing, and the more that we can flesh out these perpetrators, then, by people, if you remember, then go to the police, even if the 7 years is up, find somebody that you can talk to, because the more we do this and the more unsafe it is for them to do it, the less it's going to happen.
That's how we can stop it, is by bringing awareness to it. And so people recognize it and they will do something about it. Nothing's ever going to be done if no one recognizes the problem. But by talking about, people start becoming aware and then they recognize it. Mm-hmm. That's how it's going to have to end. But it's the only way. If people don't recognize the issue, they're not going to care about it.
Right. And there is always the chance. I know when people have told me their story and they've gone to someone and, and they said, I believe you, it's like, that is so refreshing to hear, because often people will protect the perpetrator. And as long as they do that, and we've seen that with the sports world, especially, and as long as people protect those perpetrators, more are going to get away with it. But we are seeing a trend because of the whole Me Too, people finally saying, okay, I'm going to tell my truth. As much as I hate it, I'm going to tell it, because we can't let this keep going on.
Yeah. And that's, people will start to recognize and believe the survivors. The more that we talk about, then they'll recognize, oh, this really is happening.
Mm-hmm. Because we don't want to believe it. Average people don't want to believe this kind of thing happens. But I think about what Julie does with the I'm on Watch, is they raising awareness. And I think the more we're aware that these kind of things happen, and A, we can spot it, or B, if it's happened to us, that we share it so that we start fleshing this out. I think that is the way change is going to happen.
Yeah. That's why this is so important to talk about. That's why we're talking about it. Yep. I wouldn't be up here doing this if I didn't think it would change the awareness
or make a difference.
Yeah.
And, I teach podcasting, and I had a class today, and, when people come to the class, like, I don't go around and tell everybody this, but when people come to a class because they feel like they have a message, I say, if you're in this class because you think you have a message, then your job is to get that message out, to push record, to do the thing, to share the story. And because I work with people in recovery from drugs and alcohol, we've lost so many people before they share their story, and so I would just say, don't wait. Find someone you can talk to.
No, contact us. We'll talk to you. We'll listen. We'll believe you. And if you want, we can share your story.
Yeah.
and it can change someone's life.
Definitely. Most definitely. Well, thanks for giving me a platform. I feel much better. I feel like I had some therapy, some talk therapy here. And so I know this is where we wrap up and pray. So
that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I thank you for all your blessings, especially those unexpected blessings, the times that we are reminded of where we've come from in order to show us how far we've gone and how you've been there the whole time, supporting us, carrying us, protecting us. And even though we've gone through trials that you never intended for us, but you know how to heal us, you know how to provide a path for us, even through these times of hardships. And Lord, I just pray for anyone listening that you would remind them that you are there and you are present in their lives, and you want to show them how to get through things. You want to show them how to get through their troubles and to thrive. And Lord, I just pray that you would bless Laurie and bless her through this. It's hard to be reminded of all the loss, and it's hard to grieve, but I pray you would just bless her choices and bless the fact that she has made the hard choices and they were the right choices. In your name I pray.
And Father, I thank you that everything that happens is an opportunity for us to go deeper, do more work, or to actually even reflect on how far we've come. And I pray for this family that is grieving over their loss, that you will just give them comfort. And Lord, as they process all of this, that maybe someday they will come to recognize that they have perpetrator in their midst, and they have a lot of toxicity, and that you might just reveal that and help them with their healing, Lord, because we know as long as we live in that kind of toxic environment, there isn't going to be healing. So I pray for that in your son's holy name. Amen.